This is the Whole Care Network. Helping you tell your story one podcast at a time. Content presented in the following podcast is for information purposes only. Views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the host and guest and may not represent the views and opinions of the Whole Care Network. Always consult with your physician for any medical advice, and always consult with your attorney for any legal advice. And thank you for listening to the Whole Care Network.
I unabashedly say that I started ACAP to help me help my mother. And it just happened to be that there are a lot of other people who needed it also.
Caring for aging parents or other loved ones while working, raising children, and trying to live your own life? Wondering how to find the time for your personal health and happiness? Well, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Happy Healthy Caregiver podcast, the show where real family caregivers share how to be happy and healthy while caring for others. Now, here's your host, family caregiver and certified caregiving consultant, Elizabeth Miller.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to the Happy Healthy Caregiver podcast, which is part of the Whole Care Network. If this is your first time listening, welcome. This is a show produced bi-weekly to help family caregivers integrate self-care and caregiving into their lives. Also, exciting news that the Happy Healthy Caregiver podcast is now part of Whole Care Network Radio. It's a live stream radio channel, so I will link to that in the show notes as well. Is your company looking for a speaker for their employee resource group, or are you part of an organization that's planning an upcoming expo, conference, or appreciation lunch for caregivers? If so, consider passing along my name and Happy Healthy Caregiver and as a potential speaker for your event. I'm available as an in-person or virtual speaker, and I enjoy connecting with family caregivers and fast-tracking them to support and resources. I'll link to my speaker page, which includes a speaker demo video in the show notes page. For today's segment of what I'm reading, I listened to a book by one of my favorite authors, Jojo Moyes, called Someone Else's Shoes. It's basically a story of mix-ups, mess-ups, and making the most of second chances. And who are we, or who are you, when we are forced to walk in someone else's shoes? I gave this 3 out of 5 stars on Goodreads, and I enjoyed what literally transpires after 2 women accidentally exchange shoes. The stories are entwined, one of a story of devastation and one of glorifying confidence. There's fun characters and adventures, and the audio narration is British and so well done. I will link to the book in the show notes page. For the favorite thing segment of this show, I'm going to call out the Aloha brand of protein bars. So I have been fixated on trying to get enough protein in my day. I have found that I just don't eat enough protein. And so sometimes shakes and bars are really helpful to me on top of, eating meat and other sources of protein at mealtime. And as family caregivers, we need sustainable snacks with quality ingredients. And these come in so handy when we're running from one place to the next. I like to keep protein bars on hand for situations where I'm feeling hangry or need some kind of a quick grab and go nourishing snack. So these ones are tasty. They have high quality ingredients. They're vegan, they're low sugar, gluten-free, paleo, low carb, non-GMO, stevia-free, soy-free, no sugar alcohol sweeteners. Woo! So I've tried different flavors and I haven't had a bad one yet. But I'm going to put in the show notes page a specific flavor called the peanut butter chocolate chip. Now on Amazon, you have to commit to a whole case. So the show notes is going to be a whole case of these. So you might want to see what they look like, but head somewhere else. I get mine individually at Whole Foods if you want to try one and see what that's like. Or if you're just some crazy risk taker, go for it. Order the whole case. Worst comes to worst, you can, give them out to friends and family. Tuck some in your purse, your briefcase, your car, your desk drawer, and even your kids' lunches. Before we get into today's Caregiver Spotlight episode, I want to shine the light on our episode sponsor, Rare Patient Voice. Do you want to earn cash in exchange for your opinion? Rare Patient Voice, or RPV, helps connect researchers with patients and family caregivers for over 700 diseases and conditions. For patients and caregivers, RPV provides the opportunity to voice their opinions to improve medical products and services while earning cash rewards. Rare Patient Voice, helping patients and caregivers share their voices. If you are interested, join the RPV panel at rarepatientvoice.com/Happy Healthy Caregiver. Let's meet today's caregiver in the spotlight. Frances Hall is the founder and executive director of ACAP, Adult Children of Aging Parents, a nationally unique nonprofit organization that she founded when she was the caregiver for her mom. In 2012, Frances began offering the monthly educational programs, first for her fellow faculty and staff at a small university, and then for her broader North Carolina community. Since then, ACAP has grown to 9 chapters in 4 states and is continuing to grow. In this episode, learn what makes the ACAP community different from a typical caregiver support group, how Frances gave herself grace while caregiving for both her mother and her husband, and how journaling played a healing role in her caregiving season. Enjoy the show. Hi, Frances. Welcome to the Happy Healthy Caregiver podcast.
Hello there. How nice. I'm so honored to be here. Thank you.
Yes, well, we're going to have a great conversation, and I'm excited to dive into your story and share all of your tips. But first, we kick off some words of wisdom from the Happy Healthy Caregiver jar. So let's see what we've got in store for your episode today, Frances. Here we go. All right, let's get your thoughts on this. It says, caring is being there even when you want to be somewhere else.
Oh, singing my song and a lot of other people's. What comes to my mind first off is simply that we may really want to be the caregiver. We want to give back, particularly now I'm coming out of that space of parents and older adult loved ones. So a lot of times I certainly experienced, and I hear people talk about, this is my opportunity to give back to my parent or to my loved one. But the reality is, caregiving can get hard. It can be a long, difficult, isolating journey. And so, there are those times that we are doing what we feel like we need to do and deep down want to do, but there also is this tug of, oh my word, I would love to be doing something different than this.
Exactly. There's a lot of difficult emotions, I think, that come up with caregiving, and, resentment and guilt. And you get to you learn a lot about yourself, I think, in this season of your life. There are many times where I would have loved to just take it and someone else deal with this for a while. But yet I think caregivers, we show up, and we do a lot of that invisible labor every day. And that's, we're here to say thank you. Frances and I are just, want you to know that we see you. We see everything that you're putting into this.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, I know you have your caregiving story, Frances. Tell us a little bit about how caregiving happened to you in your life.
Mine really starts when my mother was caring for her mother. So I would have been at that point probably in my 30s, I guess. And I was watching my mother. My mother took an early retirement to care for her mother. My grandmother at that point was 90-ish. And as I say, 2 weeks after my mother retired, my grandmother took to her bed, meaning that she became bedridden. And for the next 5 years, the next 3.5 years, my mother cared for her as a bed patient, completely alone, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for 3.5 years. And then finally, grandma went into a nursing home. So I watched my mother do all of this and just was so consumed with how do I help, and hadn't a clue how to help. So then we fast forward. My grandmother passes. We fast forward. And at the age of 89, my mother was diagnosed with a very rare form of cancer, and so decided to move near me. I live in North Carolina. She lived in Alabama. And so she moved to be near me. And I had always known that I would be my mother's caregiver. I wanted to do that for her. But when we actually got there, it was a lot tougher than I ever thought it would be. And so I was working full time at a small university at that point, and sort of running out the door every other day saying, I will be back sometime. Mom has an emergency. And I would get back later that day, the next week. Not really good for a career by any means. But during all of that, I came to realize that I was newly married. I didn't want to give up the marriage, wasn't planning to give up the marriage. I had a mother that needed the help, and I had a job that was more than full time. And I decided something has to give. So I stopped working to have time to spend with my mother. And I will never regret that. I'm really glad that we had that time, that we could be together, and that I could do what I could for her. But yeah, caregiving is tough, and it doesn't have to be that somebody is bedridden. It can be an emotionally difficult journey, and emotionally difficult not only for the caregiver, but also for the person who is aging and finding themselves in such a different situation that they never wanted to be in. So
how did watching your mom and when she cared for her mother, how did that inform how you wanted to do it maybe differently?
I was real clear that I wanted to do everything I could for my mother, but I also was really hoping that my mother would do things differently than her mother had done. And to some degree, she did. I think one of the things that it did, and what kind of came back to me as I was caring for my mother, is who can help? Where are the resources? Where do you go? Who do you turn to when you really don't know what to do? How to do this? And that's really how ACAP started, is because I didn't know the resources. I knew my mother, but I didn't know the resources. And so trying to put together the resources is really what gave impetus to ACAP.
To what you started. What were some of the initial resources that you were like, okay, this is helpful?
I found out about in our area, we have through our area agency on aging, we have a particular person who is designated as the family caregiver support specialist, and making connection with her and finding out all the resources that she knew about was enormously helpful. Okay, so I need a caregiver. Where do I turn? I don't know. Go down, through the yellow pages or online and just pick a name. Well, that didn't seem very, very wise. So they were able, certainly not to say, this is the organization you need to go with, but at least gave me some resources that then I could go and find out about. Some other things were even just, where are some opportunities for engagement for an older person? Where can someone live who is not from the area, an older person who doesn't need a lot of help, but needs some help? So those kinds of things
So good.
came first.
Yeah, they're like golden people when you find them that can fast track you to the resources. And I definitely hope that Happy Healthy Caregiver is seen as one of those resources for folks, for sure. And sometimes I find the resources for caregivers are not just the ones for their care recipient, but also can help simplify their lives, make it easier so that they have more time to focus on caregiving. And one of the examples I'm thinking of are like, I love my mobile dog groomer, because my mobile dog groomer comes to my house. My dog goes out there. It saves me so much time, and it has saved me time so that I can then be doing other things with that time.
Right.
Yeah, I think the mobile, I love the telehealth, the mobile world of what is happening out there can really help provide resources there. Now you've cared for more than one person though. You had another caregiving role happen to you.
Right. My husband. Yeah. My husband, a year after my mother died, my husband was diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia. And
Mm.
we did that journey for 15 months. He was absolutely amazing. A very healthy, fit cyclist, somebody that, oh yeah, I'm going to go out and ride 30 miles every day on a bicycle. So that's the kind of person that he was. But yeah, that was a very different journey.
Different.
It's
Yeah.
very different to care for, to be the caregiver for a parent versus a spouse, in all kinds of ways, but equally powerful. Yeah,
Are you comfortable sharing any of the differences? I mean, I'm obviously the
sure.
intimacy part of it. Uh, what what are some other things that kind of strike you as being different?
I remember an early ACAP program, and I remember this woman sitting on the front row, and I've forgotten what the topic was, but I remember that she raised her hand. She said, so with my daughter, with my child, I have an instant built-in respect. With my mother, she was caring for her mother at that point, and she said, there is none of that. There is no respect for my role as a caregiver. That's sort of what I found with my mother and my husband. With a parent, they're the ones who cared for us when we were young. So for us now to be caring for them, for us, it's sort of payback time sometimes. For them, it's, oh no, I'm still the parent, and that real difficulty in not giving up that role, because they never do, and we don't want them to. But that shift in being from there being independent to being more dependent. With a spouse, we start as partners. We start as equals. There isn't this dominant, inferior relationship that we have with parents. And even though we become adults, and that relationship shifts from being a parent and child to being more peer, rarely, I think, does it actually get to be that peer-to-peer kind of relationship with a parent, whereas we start off with that with a spouse or with a partner. So yeah, it was very, very different. I could say things and do things for my husband, with my husband, and he understood it differently and appreciated it differently than my mother did.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry for your loss on both accounts, because I know that was not probably the story that you had kind of seen for your life play out too. I think there's an expectation for our parents that, none of us want to outlive our children's life. But for our partners, we want them around. So I know that that's likely been a hard thing. So you mentioned ACAP a couple times, so let's dig into that. How did this ACAP community, and ACAP stands for Adult Children of Aging Parents community, how did this get to be?
Right. Well, as I was running out the door saying my mother has an emergency, I was working at a small university, and I started having conversation with other people, other staff and faculty and staff, and realized that there were a good number of us kind of doing the same thing, that we are caring for our parents and we haven't a clue how to do that. We don't know where the resources are. So I started inviting them to just, bring your lunch. Let's once a month just sit down and just talk, thinking that somebody would know something that could be helpful to me or to someone else. So we did that for several months. And what I realized is that we're really not helping each other. We just are sitting around kind of belly aching. And I decided, I need more than this. And I unabashedly say that I started ACAP to help me help my mother. And it just happened to be that there are a lot of other people who needed it also. So after several months of just doing sort of a support group, informal support group, I started inviting speakers to come in once a month. And it would be faculty from the university. It would be area agency on aging people. It would be, all kinds of people coming in to do different programs. And so what happened was that I had been doing the programs on the university campus for about a year or so. I was able to stop work to have time with Mom. And I had begun hearing people in the community ask, when are you going to bring this into the Hickory community? Because we can't get out to the campus for lunch and learn. So I started offering the programs in the Hickory community at night. Started it with 8 people or something like that. And within about 4 months, it had mushroomed to about 45 people, 35, 45 people every month who were coming to the programs. And then I have now a friend, I didn't know her at all, who was or is a PhD disabilities expert, disability specialist, who also was the caregiver, long distance caregiver for her parents in Northern Virginia. Jane started coming to the programs and realized, there is really something here. And she partnered with me for a while, and we became a 501c3 and developed a curriculum and put a lot of pieces in place.
Wow.
So,
yeah. What makes the ACAP community, what makes it different than a typical caregiver support group?
The core of ACAP is education. So we have this curriculum, we have a particular, I'm going to call it a formula, but we are very clear that the programs are educational programs. They are evidence-informed, evidence-based programs, that it is not, as I call it, a thinly veiled commercial for any person or organization or business. It is, let us provide for you real substantive information. That's a difference. One of the foundational differences is that our focus is on the adult child of an aging parent. And that's different. That's nationally unique. Nobody else is doing quite that. It's typically caregivers in general, not the adult child. But my experience and my conversations say that we who are the adult child, we're the ones taking time off from work. We're the ones who are making sure that Mom and Dad get to the doctor or get groceries or we are the ones making it happen. And so that's different. Making sure that the programs are done at the same time, the same place, the same date, the same time and place every month. That's sometimes a little bit different from others because they kind of travel around, or it can be at different times, different days. Even the fact that we don't have caregiver in the name suggests, and we really are intentional, that this is not just for people who are caregivers, although we know there are an awful lot of caregivers who don't consider themselves caregivers.
Yes.
That they're just doing what needs to be done. They're not a caregiver.
Yeah. They're a daughter, a son, a spouse, an aunt,
right.
Whatever. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right. So there really are a combination of things. The curriculum is very specific. What the programs that we are offering, and in fact, the original, we're in the process of updating it, but the original curriculum was nationally validated and copyrighted, and so we now, because that was in 2013, and we now are 10 years after that.
Wow.
We're updating that based on new research.
Well, I can echo what you're saying, as Francis, as far as that, because one of the things is we're starting a chapter. So I'm in the Atlanta area for my county, Cobb County, and the neighboring county, Cherokee. We have an Atlanta chapter, but we're starting a Cobb Cherokee chapter in Northwest Atlanta, and that's kicking off in February of 2024. And my position on our leadership committee, so that's another difference of a support group, is usually there's like one person kind of running the show. This is a group of people with varying expertise. And so me and another fellow leader are in charge of the programming. So taking your curriculum and matching it up with people in our community who can be the resources for them, and making sure that it's not sales focused and that they are sticking to the talking points and really providing value, rich content and educational value for the attendees. And I think about like how amazing that would have been for me to have that. So thank you for what you have created. I'm excited to kick off our chapter. I think it's going to be, it's work. It's amazing. But it's so necessary. And, it's harder to do this at a national level because it is so critical that people tie into the local resources. And I think that's where the magic of the ACAP community is that not only are you going to get these adult children of aging parents together and educate them, but they're going to leave with some community in that as well. And hopefully, talk to each other afterwards without feeling like they've got to buy something.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for all of that and for your enthusiasm. And yes, I am really excited about what's going to be happening in Cobb and Cherokee County. I had not thought about the uniqueness of the leadership team, but you're right. And we recommend that there be 14 people that represent a whole wide range of organizations and businesses and agencies in the area, all local, all volunteering their time to do this. It's an amazing kind of setup, and the people who are involved are absolutely amazing across the board. We now, in fact, when you all launch in February, we will have 9 chapters in 4 states.
Nice. Well, and hopefully this will help prompt people to say, well, why needs to be as chapters? So we've got North Carolina, we've got some in Georgia. What are some of the other states, Francis, that have chapters out there?
Pennsylvania and New Jersey.
Nice. Well, yes. It's so if and to echo what you're saying about the leadership team, like there are people, the types of people on the leadership team for us are like people who own a home care agency or people who help people find senior living communities. We have a financial person on ours. We have a Medicare person on ours. We have a person who invented some amazing product for folks with dementia. We have a hospice person. So these are the kinds of folks that are on our leadership. And when we get together, it's really cool to kind of see the spark start to fly. So I'm excited. To get it. And of course, I'll link to ACAP Community. I'm going to link to the chapter when that's available to share with you all. And if folks want to start a chapter, so let's say somebody, because I know we have caregivers that listen to the show, but we also have people that work in this caregiving space, older adult space, and they're listening and like, we need to have this in my community. And let me be like, it's not a networking group for these folks. This is not what it is. It is to enrich the adult children of aging parents. But if somebody wants to start a chapter, what would they need to do?
They need to get in touch with me, bottom line. Because there is, as you know from your own experience, there's a whole lot that goes into starting a chapter. And so we work very closely with new chapters. There's lots of involved, lots of time, lots of people that get involved with that. So the starting point is to be in touch with me. I do what I call an intro, an ACAP intro, a PowerPoint, a session, and I offer that twice a month for anybody who is interested in even learning more about ACAP. I'll be delighted for them to come to one of the intro sessions. And that's sort of the starting point.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes involved in kicking this off, and they can learn from your expertise. And you have this turnkey process. So instead of somebody having to like reinvent the wheel, turnkey process, talking through how they can get the sponsorship needed in their area, how to market it. And so I know you're a wealth of information. So thank you so much for what you do with the ACAP community. All right, let's switch gears. We're going to talk about self-care now. So what's your definition, Frances, of self-care?
Self-care is simply, taking care of yourself is just too simplistic. It really is understanding who you are, what you need, and making that happen. Giving yourself the grace of treating yourself as you would treat somebody else that you care about.
I know sometimes we treat everything better, even our cars, our phones, better than sometimes we can treat ourselves. What did self-care look like for you, like when you were in deep in the caregiving season of your life with your mom, with your husband? Like how did you make that sustainable for you?
It's really interesting. And again, I think because of the difference in the dynamics and the relationship between my mother and me versus my husband and me, I found that there were very different things going on with each of those. With my mother, my husband was such a rock for me, and so present, so involved with that whole journey. Otherwise, it was basically saying, I can go this far, but I can't do more. I'm doing all I can do. And I was about to say being okay with that. I'm not sure that we ever feel completely okay when we know that there are more needs that we just can't do. But I think we do reach a point of saying, that's all. That's all I can do. And that is okay. And I think part of self-care is reminding ourselves that is okay, and that really is healthy for everyone to have those boundaries. With my husband, what I found was doing some writing, journaling, and I set up, and I can't think of the name of the platform at this point, Caring Bridge.
A Caring Bridge, yeah.
Caring Bridge is a wonderful, wonderful platform. And there were lots of people journeying with us, very concerned about what was happening and the roller coaster that we were on. And so every night I would journal. And it was really interesting how cathartic that was for me. Even when we were in the hospital, we would turn the lights out and he would go to bed, and I would stay up journaling. I would stay up doing Caring Bridge. But that became really important, and being able to have time that I could go and do something that was not just completely consumed with him. That was self-care. But there also, for me, was a piece of self-care of doing what I could for him. Diet was really important. And so I made very sure that I cooked better and was more intentional about his diet, consequently my diet, probably than ever before. So there are things that you do that you have to do out of self-preservation, because it truly is that, put your own oxygen mask on first.
Yeah. Well, you've mentioned a lot of things, even emotional self-care, physical self-care, with even some of the boundary setting that you alluded to. Like, I think there's a lot of, it's not just what the media portrays is what self-care looks like. It's not a manicure and pedicure. It's, it's bigger
nice.
than that. Yeah. Those are great. Right. But it's the little daily things that we do so that we can keep our energy up, stay in a good spot of mind. And to your point, that helps everybody that, in all of our relationships, work, home, all of that. What does self-care look like for you now? You're a busy woman with the ACAP communities. I know you barely got time to breathe, I'm sure. So what does that look like for you so that you can keep this sustainable while you're growing more chapters?
Right, right, right. What I say that I am trying to do this. There are some days that I get it done really well, and other days or weeks that just are not so good. And I think that's okay too, to recognize and to give yourself grace that there are going to be better days and some days not so good. But certainly movement, getting out into fresh air is really, really life-giving. Being in the woods, being on a trail is so you just breathe differently, from a variety of standpoints. That's really important, and I try to do that. Certainly trying to be intentional about diet. Kind of learned that with Bill, trying to be really mindful of that, and certainly trying to have time, whether it is online, but even specifically carving out time to have with um, friends and family. My family is not in my town, so I have to go to them. But those kinds of things are really important in terms of self-care and self-preservation. Exactly what you're
Yes,
saying.
yes. Well, you and I would be good walking partners if you live closer, because those are I love a good hike. I love getting outside in nature and all of that. And social self-care that you mentioned too is also so important, to surround ourselves with the people, so we can laugh and we can share stories and feel like we're connected to a bigger piece. So I love that you'd mentioned journaling earlier, and we use Carrying Bridge too in my family for my parents. And it was a great way to stay connected we have a massive family. And that gets exhausting, right? Keeping everybody updated and all that. So while you're journaling, it's also very practical self-care type of thing, in that it's saving you so much time to say, here's the journal link. You can go check this out. Sometimes we don't want to put that all over our Facebook page, and this gives you a concentrated spot to put all of that information. So I will link to Carrying Bridge in the show notes. And then journaling was cathartic for me and my journey. And I used to, schedule time on my calendar before work twice a week. I would go to Starbucks, I would write, and then I would do some movement, and then I'd still be at my desk by 8:30 in the morning to start my job. I don't even know how I did this.
Wow.
Life,
Wow,
like that,
really?
that's when you look back at your caregiving years and you're like, whoa, what happened there? What did I do? But that was so important to me that energized me. Actually, it sounds hard to kind of get up at 5 a.m. and make that happen, but that was very cathartic for me as well. So I wanted folks to get a taste of that. So I wrote the Just For You Daily Self-Care Journal. It's a prompted journal so that if people can try on journaling, see if it's for them. But the impetus of this book is more about how you can prioritize your own health and happiness. So less about written with caregivers in mind, because we're doing so many things for other people. But how do we reclaim our own health and happiness in that? So have some questions for you for our lightning round today. Let's see what your thoughts are here, Frances. No wrong answers. What relaxation strategy helps you the most? So when you're really feeling tense and stressed, what's a strategy you use?
I think for me, it would be Sirius XM. Some of those really calming music channels. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, my cousin's going to love you, Frances. She works for SiriusXM. So we'll link to that. I love some of the what is it? First Wave and the kind of the classics channels, but I know what you're talking about, some of the chill music and all that. So we'll link to that in the show notes. Okay, here's another one for you, a prompt. Doesn't have to be caregiving advice, just anything. It says the best advice you ever received. And it's hard to put a best on there, but what's some good advice you've received?
Oh, wow. So much. The thing that is coming to my mind, it may not be the best, but it's what's coming to my mind. And that is basically to treat each person as if you would want to be treated, because it's going to come back to you. It will come back to you.
Yes. Kindness is free. Let's sprinkle it around like confetti for sure. What do you want more of in your life?
Oh, so many different things. I could say hours in the day, energy. Um, I think what I really would like more in my life is just time to spend with the people that I care about, and being intentional about making that happen, because it's so easy to get caught up, whether it's with everything going on with ACAP or whether it's caring for somebody or, our job or whatever it is. Sometimes it's really hard to say what is really important is to really invest in those relationships and to have the time with those people that we really do care about and making sure that they knew that.
I think, sometimes friends of family caregivers and people that are, in the watching somebody happen and be like, I really just don't know how to help them. That is a way that you can help them, is by scheduling a lunch date and like, hey, let's go on a walk together. And I call these twofers, when it's like, you got to eat anyway. You should be doing some kind of movement, and you're getting some catch up time with some folks. So you can be someone's self-care cheerleader and help that social enrichment, because we all need that. I think we all need that.
But I want to say this about that, and that is, particularly for people who are in the midst of caregiving, you may schedule that time and they may have every intention to be there, but something happens at the last minute and they can't. So just recognize that they are doing everything they can, and they need for you to be present. They need that friend, they need those family members to be present, but also to understand that if they can't do it, or they need to do something different in that time, that's okay too. Don't take that personally. Don't go away. Just recognize that that's where they need to be right at that moment. And
so true.
Keep inviting.
Keep inviting, or maybe change it up. Like you're saying, it's like, oh, we were planning to go out to lunch. I understand you can't. Let me bring something to you, or let me, we'll walk around the house instead of going for a walk on the trail. Change what it looks like, or maybe we'll just share a glass of wine together, whatever you would need there. What is your most treasured possession and why?
Ooh. You always think about, if my house were burning, what would I grab?
Yeah.
There are lots of pictures in this house. Probably at this point, there would be two different things that I would have to grab. One is, oh golly, there may be more than that. There are several pictures of the family with my husband, pre-grandchildren, all that. Those are precious. They get the kids gave me a digital frame last year that has lots of pictures on it. Love it. That gizmo.
It's a great gift.
It really is, and particularly if others will download the pictures, it's a wonderful gift.
There's even some where you can email it right to the frame. Like the frame has its own email address.
Yeah, mine does.
Okay,
so,
perfect.
It's wonderful.
We'll link to one in the show notes if people want to grab that.
Absolutely. Love it. Great for holiday gifts or birthday gifts or those kinds of things. Particularly as we get older, we don't need a lot of stuff, but that's just really precious. The other thing is that I have a painting, or it's really a poster. It's the Norman Rockwell golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do it. Is that?
I don't know. Do unto others as they would have them do unto you. That is the golden rule.
Yeah, but all of a sudden I'm thinking, is that what is on there?
You walk by it all the time. Sometimes it's just like part of it. Because whatever it is, you're going to grab that Norman Rockwell.
That's right. It's the Norman Rockwell with all the people from different nationalities. It is a wonderful, wonderful piece. And I've had it since college. So that would be one that I definitely would have to grab. It has been in every house, every apartment, everywhere that I have been since my college days.
I love it. Yeah, it's funny when you boil it all down. It's like the things that are really, really meaningful to us. Well, Frances, you are spreading kindness around like confetti, and you are doing these things, and you are practicing what you preach. And so I'm delighted that we've had this time together today. Do you have any other things that you're like, we cannot end this show without me sharing this or saying this? And then, so any parting words? And then also, how do people stay in touch with you?
My parting words probably would be, it does not matter who you are, what your educational background is, what your socioeconomics are. Nothing matters when it is your mother, your father, your loved one. Really understanding the need for caregiving and the need for your own care becomes really important. So there are so many people who think, oh, well, I'm a nurse or I'm a doctor or I'm a whatever, and that I should know how to do this. You don't. Again, give yourself grace. So that would be my parting words, is give yourself grace.
Good advice. Yes. More grace than guilt. That's what I say. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
Phrases.
I like that.
Because guilt comes up a lot, but you can replace it with the other G word, the grace word.
Yeah.
Yes. Lots of grace. Yes. You're doing the best you can. You're making the best decisions with the information you have at the time. Like, it is not easy. It is emotionally charged.
Exactly. Yeah. And I am not above big borrowing or stealing ideas. So I might have to,
That's the highest compliment.
Guilt and grace. Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So how do people stay in touch or learn more about ACAP?
Learn more through our website, www.acapcommunity.org, www.acapcommunity.org. And you can reach me through the website, or my email address is fhall, as in Francis Hall, fhall at acapcommunity.org.
Got it. Okay. We will link to all of that in the show notes page. Thank you so much, Frances, for being the guest today.
This has been a joy. Thank you for the honor and the privilege of being with you. And thank you for what you are doing. Absolutely. This is fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you. Take care.
Thanks. You too. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us today on the Happy Healthy Caregiver podcast on the Whole Care Network. As always, show notes that accompany today's episode can be found on my website, happyhealthycaregiver.com. Just look under the podcast menu for today's episode image, and that will take you to the page with the links and information we spoke about today. You'll also find other resources on the website, along with links to purchase the Just For You Daily Self-Care Journal. When you purchase from my website, you'll get a signed copy, and for a limited time, free shipping. If you've enjoyed what you heard today, consider subscribing to the show on your podcast platform. It really helps other family caregivers find the podcast, and you'll automatically receive our bi-weekly shows in your podcast listening queue. Maybe while you're subscribing, consider leaving a 5-star rating and review, or just simply talk it up on your social channels. Let's stay connected. I'm on Instagram and Facebook as Happy Healthy Caregiver. And until we meet again, please take care of you.
This is the Whole Care Network. Helping you tell your story one podcast at a time.